Alright, let's take a look at this piece we've been identifying some sets from and just get a sense of what set class can do as you use it as an analytical tool. This passage, starting in measure 1 and going here through measure 11, this passage has a bit of an ABA format to it, a little ternary format. The reason being that you have a sense of departure here and a sense of return here. Let me make that case. At the beginning you've got this tune, and you get a similar contour here. Now I know a lot of intervals have changed, but with Schoenberg, who started this idea, proposed this idea of developing variation, particularly in Brahms, it seems reasonable that the inventor of such a thought would also vary his ideas significantly. And I think what we see here is a theme and its variation. Intervals have changed, but the contour is definitely the same. Until that note, which goes up instead of downward here. Half steps both, but different directions. So some pretty big changes, like these sets A and H look quite similar, but then look at the size of this leap from C to G sharp. That's a big departure from this, and yet it still goes up and back down and follows the contour of the opening theme with just that one difference. There's another reinforcing aspect here, and that's the way the chords punctuate. There are just two chords here. I've labeled them C and D, and then we get J and K at A, let's call it A prime. So we've got A, a B section, and an A prime coming here. And the chords do punctuate, so we get that for our opening. And now listen, the chords are quite different. Basic difference here. We're getting quite a new sound, and then at the end here. And again, I hope you can kind of get a sense already what we're going to say about the role of set classes. You've got similar material coming back, but because the interval content is totally different, you end up with very new set classes. So he's recasting his material by changing intervals, and as a result we're going to see that the set classes are quite different between A and A prime. Set class then is helping provide variation on old themes. New set classes for a recognizable theme and also a pattern of chords relating with it. The whole passage is redone. Let's also notice, we've seen why we've got A and A prime, but there's also contrast in the middle, starting in measure 4. This is quite different from the theme. You've got an idea that does this in the right hand, and then the left hand does this climb. And you recognize the set E coming back over here, but look how it's kind of discombobulated. It's been pulled apart, so that every note is separate until the last two. Jump ahead to measure 7 and you'll see that he's pulled it apart even further. Now every note has its own separate attack. There are no simultaneities. The music's being sort of pulled apart before your very ears. The idea is really a chord, and so I've labeled it as chord F. This set serves as a backdrop for this motion going on in the bass clef. That idea comes back intact here, but you've lost the upper two notes of this chord F. They're being pulled apart. The left hand gesture is now isolated. Now there's a little bit of new material here, the D flat to C, accompanying this old idea in the right hand, set E in those next couple notes. But then again, we get the left hand gesture isolated once more. Okay, so contrasting material, but internally it's got a lot of cohesiveness because it really is just these two main gestures reworked. Two new notes, but basically the same idea reworked. Again, developing variation. He's giving you similar content. He's just reworking it each time you hear it. But the main point is that that material that we're looking at now provides contrast. It's a contrasting middle section, allowing for a sense of return in measure 9 with the opening theme. All right, so now that we're clear about how this thing works as a ternary form unit, let's take a look at the role of the set classes and the contrasts that occur there. So we've looked at set A and B, these melodic gestures there, and starting with the F. And when we did that, we recognized the presence of 0 and 4 as the set class in each case. You can see that on the keyboard in a hurry. There's the 4. And there's a half step inside there, attached to one side for set A, and then on the other side, the upper, for set B. There again is our major third, the 4, and now the half steps up at the top, smack up against the upper boundary tone. So, yeah, they're inversions of one another. You've got to take this pattern and flip it, but they are the same interval pattern expressed in two different directions. Okay, 0 and 4. Expressed melodically twice. Lots of thirds, because you can see inside that you also have a major third and a minor third. 3 and 4, you've got a half step. Now let's take a look at chords C and D and compare them. So here's the stuff that's accompanimental, and I'm including also the A and the F. Now the F's already in the chord, so the melody is just reiterating a note that you've already heard. But I'm also including the A because I didn't account for it in any other way, so I'm packing that in with the chord. Alright, so let's restack it. And I'm not going to write this all out, but work from the keyboard and just look at the interval pattern, remembering that the wraparound is going on. So if you see my little right hand pinky touching this F here, it's because I want to realize that, hey, that's an interval too. That's my wraparound interval. So I've reordered this set. I've just taken the notes and made them compact, and I can see that tritone, that's a big interval. I want to avoid that, but these guys are small. This is a compact version of those notes, of that set. It's that set reworked so that it's in normal form. Alright, so let's look at the content here. It's in normal form, so I can go up from F or I can go down from B. Which do I pick? Well, I want the small interval first, so I'm going to go up, half step, instead of the whole that's up at the top. That whole step's bigger. So I get 0, 1, and then give A as an interval away from the F, that's 4. So 0, 1, 4, 6, a tritone, and that produces this set class. 0, 1, 4, 6. The set class of set C. Notice you have 0, 1, 4 in this chord, just as you had it as the set class of melodic entities. Let's move on to set D, again a chord. Now I'm taking a melody note and including it here. It's almost, if you think of it as kind of like modeled after tonality, you've got a note that's held over, suspended, and then resolved. So I feel like the E belongs to the chord more than the F. That's my rationale for including it. Let's do the same thing as we did with the other. We'll put it in normal form. So I'm going to take that B flat up here. Is that as tight as I can get it? Yeah, it is, because if I went back to this A up top here, I'd have a fairly big interval included. This is more compact right here. Alright, which way do we go? I've got it in normal form. Do I want to move up through the normal form, or do I want to move down? Well, that half step's a dead giveaway. I want to go upward and use the small interval first. Alright, what are those intervals? intervals from the reference pitch class A. Alright, so I've got 0, 1, 4 again. Wow, 0 and 4 yet again. But a new interval up here, that's a perfect fifth. So I want 0, 1, 4, 7. 0, 1, 4, 7 there. Okay. 0, 1, 4 is very prominent, either as subset or as a set in its entirety. So my A material is characterized by really intervallic richness. You've got tritone, 0 to 6. You've got minor thirds, you've got major thirds, you've got half steps. You've got every kind of interval. You have perfect intervals, fourth, fifth, available to you with 0, 1, 4, 6. There is every interval available to you within the 0, 1, 4, 6. You can find them in there somewhere, and their potential to be realized in the music. So intervallic richness in A. Now let's look at the contrasting B material, starting in measure 4. Right away you get a new kind of sound here with set E because it's very whole tone-ish. You have these notes already in compact form. I don't want this tritone, I want this with its smaller intervals here. This is normal form for set E, and notice going up is better because I'll get the whole step instead of the major third. 0, 2, 6. Tritone. 0, 2, 6 for set E. Again, that is a whole tone, a subset of the whole tone, and I could fill in and I'd have it. I'd have to add 3 new notes to it. Now let's look at set F since it's the next one marked. That's pretty spunky, isn't it? That does not sound whole tone. Let's rework this. So I'm going to move my D up here and my G sharp up here. And it's still a big wide span. I've got that perfect fourth in there. Let me drop those 2 to here. Much better. Okay, so that's as tight as I can get it. That's my normal form for the set F. Which way do I want to go? I want to go up to get the half step first instead of the minor third. Alright, so intervallically, the recipe is 0, 1, 4, 7. Wow, we've had that before. So D and F, those 2 chords are the same. It looks kind of like a major triad, 0, 4, 7, with a half step sort of attached to it. So that would be G, B, D with a half step inside there. So if you like to think of it that way, that works. Let's compare this one. Set D we said is the same, so we should be able to find a triad in there. A major, if you want to respell the D flat as C sharp, and a half step in there. So they're actually of the same type as well, because they both are major triads with a half step right against its root, so to speak. They're just transpositions of one another from A down to G. Okay, so very similar in sound, the D and the F chords. Got one other little gesture marked in there, probably because I heard 0 and 4. That's a 0 and 4 there going on as set G. Okay, so those are your basic materials in there. I could think of that B and try and include it in that chord, or I don't know. You can view it in different ways, but just to help make a reason for why I parsed it the way I did. These first 3 notes, whether they're played successively or in some combination like that, they seem to stand alone. That's set E. F is 3 notes that stay as a backdrop to a melodic gesture, and I'm just including the D because it sounds together with it. Now it drops out as you get the motion up here, and I kind of feel like this B just belongs to that F, you're returning to that note. And so I mark these as a purely melodic gesture in there, and also influenced by the fact that it's a familiar melodic unit because we've heard it so prominently at the very beginning. Alright, now let me move on to the last section, which is A prime. Our return of theme A, but with very new set classes. We have a 3-note start to the theme this time it's presented, and I hope you can hear that right away. That's what we just heard at the beginning of the B section. But now it's up here. So we've just taken this idea and we've moved it up 2 semitones, transposition up 2. So there's our 0 to 6 coming back again. Our contrasting material was marked by 0 to 6, the contrasting middle section, and now that kind of sound has come and brought its influence to bear on old material, transforming it, making it now connect in a way to a quality in the B section. That's interesting. Set J is built out of this chord underneath a couple melody notes up above. Now here I'm putting them all together because do you hear how they really do blend? I mean, I could just focus here and say, okay, what's that? Just those bottom 3 notes, E, G flat. That's very whole tone-ish, isn't it? Now we take the C, add it to it. That's in the same whole tone collection. The G flat, that's really, I mean G sharp is really A flat, that's a duplicate. We've already heard that note. So we have these notes, major third, if I move it down I've still got a major third, so I'm actually as compact as I can get right here. And I have 4 notes out of the whole tone 0 collection. All I'd have to do is add a couple more, and I have the entire whole tone collection. So this is a subset of the whole tone that really implies the whole tone. Sounds very whole tone. And if we back up, look, we've got, if we include the D and the F sharp, we've almost got the whole thing. All we need is pitch class 11, which is, or I should say, B flat. If I just had a B flat, I'd have the entire collection, and I'm missing that one note. So it's really, with set H and J combined, I am just 1 note shy of whole tone 0. Okay, so we didn't give this yet, but that's 0, 2, 4, 8. Running off the page there, but that's 0, 2, 4, 8, a subset of the whole tone. Now, K comes up next as the next chord. Now, if I just included that A in there, which should make sense to do. So if you want to have this amoeba stretch out in the opposite direction and capture it this way, I won't scribble on it and mar my score, but just notice if I were to do this, let me pull these 2 notes up here. Again, I would have a 4-note subset of a whole tone collection. Now it's the other whole tone collection, isn't it? Instead of the even, it's the odd numbers, odd pitch class numbers involved. So this would be whole tone 1 if I were to fill it out. But I just have a 4-note subset. Again, though, that's interesting. We have a whole tone kind of sound to it. All right, but I actually circled this note, kind of like the B flat with K, as if it's the resolution, kind of like we did up here where we took the E as a chord tone, so to speak, as a part of the set. Okay, so now it ends. The final sound is not whole tone because you've moved out of this whole tone collection by including the B flat. That would belong to the even or the whole tone 0 collection. Alright, so let's see what we get. We get G and a B and a F and a B flat. Okay, we get all these guys. That half step's in there. That's as compact as I can get it. So here's my normal form. Which way do I build for set class? I want to go down because of this half step here. 0, 1, 4, 6. Interesting that we should come back to that. That's 0, 1, 4, 6, which is our opening chord right here. In a sense, we're getting a little bit of closure because we're rounding it out. We're returning to a sonority that we've heard before to close it out. But still, we have to say that the main impression that we get from the A prime material is that of whole tone collections. It sounds whole tone-ish. We get a prominent subset here from the whole tone 0 collection, then we get a four notes from the whole tone 1 or whole tone odd collection. And it's just this one note here that's an outlier, but it's a significant outlier because by just going to that one note outside of a whole tone collection, we end up enriching the whole harmonic field. You know, it's kind of like there's a paucity of intervals. There's a poverty of intervals in a whole tone collection. You're very limited. You don't have any half steps. You don't have any minor thirds available. There are certain intervals that you just don't get. But again, that 0, 1, 4, 6 packs every kind of interval in there. You can create minor thirds and major thirds. You can, from it, create perfect fifths and perfect fourths. You can create the tritone. You can create half steps. You can create whole. You've got it all there. Everything's available to you. And by just pulling that one note in, he's able to bring back something familiar in terms of sonority here in the A prime. So a neat case of material presented but then reworked because he's using new set classes. In this case, set class is serving as a tool for developing variation, for creating variety, even as you're realizing that it's familiar. It's familiar, made fresh and new, and that's why we called it A prime. Similar but wonderfully different.